last time we met. So 2 years is much better than 4 years. Why not take the 2 years to put something together that's going to benefit the entire community? Why not?
All right. At this juncture, we are, as far as the meeting date was concerned, that's our regular board meeting date on the 20th of December. We meet always the third Thursday. We try to follow the holiday schedules and things of that nature, but that's not necessarily a special meeting. That's our regular meeting date. And so we haven't, these have been special dates to try to, because of the time and because of the space. So it's not something surreptitious that we pick the date. It's because that's our regular meeting date, and it seemed to be convenient for everyone as far as the board was concerned, and it still was at least a good week, a little bit less than before the Christmas holidays and things of that nature. So that's why we have the 20th of December. Now, next, so right now we are scheduled for the 20th. We will discuss it. The board will discuss it. If the board feels as though that we need more time, or that perhaps the 20th isn't going to be convenient, we'll change it. But right now, for planning purposes, so that everyone has notice of when we hope to reconvene, it will be December the 20th. Now, if it changes, we will let you know. Okay, now, as far as the letters are concerned, the letters are what the letters are. If we have 1,500 letters, there's 1,500 letters. If they came all from the same house, they came all from the same house. I said it once and I'll say it again. That was my way to try to organize the grouping. That's all it was. Don't put any more or less value other than the fact that those many people submitted those letters. So I did not discount the fact that 10 letters came from one household. All I did was see if there were 10 letters from one household, but they were 5 from the same person. All I said was, okay, so it's actually 5, not 10. That's all. Not that it was necessarily any less or just was one mailbox. So let's put that basically over the bridge, so to speak. The letters are valued to the degree that everyone had an opportunity to state their position, and it's respected, and it's received, and it's appreciated. Now, as far as the comprehensive plan is concerned, yes, we had tried to figure out how long one would take for the whole village, and speaking with the planner in another instance, he did confirm to me that he could probably do the whole village in 2 years. But we're not going to be kicking this can down the road for 2 years. That is a policy decision. That was a policy decision made by this board. Now, can it change? Folks, look, you can disagree, and that's fine, but I'm just letting you. Folks, one meeting, please, one meeting, okay? One meeting, thank you. We've discussed the, folks, we've got to stop, okay, please. All right. At this point, then, what we can do is we'll just, did you have something to say, Mrs. Valentine? Thank you, one at a time, please. Thank you, Ms. Bogert, please. You had your opportunity to speak.
To the members of Chestnut Ridge, I think it was said already, I certainly applaud you being here tonight, hearing what you have to say. I wrote down everything you had to say. I wrote it down here in my notes, and I will be bringing it back to our board meeting. But understand that we as board members took an oath, and we're duty bound to uphold the tenets of the Constitution of the United States and the New York State. But we also recognize that the people here have a voice. I recognize that you have a voice. I wrote down everything you said, and we will discuss this as we begin to move Chestnut Ridge forward. I will do that. But But I'm saying to you, as members of Chestnut Ridge, I live in Chestnut Ridge too. I have family and children here too. So I'm very concerned about Chestnut Ridge as well. And I will work as hard as I can to make sure we uphold those tenets on both sides. So I thank you for being here. This is what democracy looks like. This is what we're supposed to be doing, and I appreciate and thank you for what you're doing.
Richard Miller, 6 Eagle Street. That help you? I appreciate if some people show the manners that you probably, hopefully, teach your children. Stop yelling at them. Let's have some manners in here. Let's have some manners. I have been a resident in this community for more than 40 years. I don't know why you people think that we don't think like you do. Now we want. Am I talking to you? I'm talking to everybody. So let's show some decorum. I am. You didn't hear me? I said it already, but since you asked nicely, I'll say it again. My name is Richard Miller. I live at 6 Eagle Street, Chestnut Ridge. Right around the corner from 4 Ann, which Mr. Lieberson was nice enough to show me the parking. 8 Ann. I'm sorry, 8. I'm sorry. Thank you. 8 Ann. 8 Ann, it's 3 or 4 houses, depending on which side of the street you count, away from my house. I've been a resident here for more than 4 years. I've been on the zoning board, most of it as chair, for 23 years. I don't know why any of you think that anyone on this board doesn't have our heart in preserving this village. We do. You may not agree with some of the things we do, and that's fine. I've had to listen to you people, some of you people, not just a few, impugn the integrity of members of this board. And I am offended by that. Because there is no alternative motives. There is no secret plan. There are people here who have been perpetuating the notion that somehow this is dumped on you with some nefarious plan afoot that is untrue. We have recently passed a parade law. And that parade law was, quote unquote, dumped on you in the exact same way that this one was. Indeed, every law we pass is presented in the way this one does. This one was. And it's presented that way. Why? To get your involvement, to get your comment. We don't ask you to help write the law initially. We present it to you, somewhat as a straw man, for your comment. And that's what we've been doing with these meetings. And they've been, to some extent, very helpful in understanding what your concerns are about this law. I've heard a story recently from actually a child of one of the residents who has recently left the village. They left after the first meeting because what they heard was so much prejudice and bias, not from all, just a few, that it disturbed them to live in the village where that could be going on. It bothers me as well. Now, I will say that the religious community bears some responsibility for this. They have not shown, in some respects, a desire to adhere to our laws, but most of them have. The problem is the very few that haven't have become very public, and the residents have brought that to our attention, thank you, and we are trying to act on it. Our hands are a little bit tied because we're having trouble with the county to get the code enforcement people we want in place. We have been trying to do that, but we have been unable to do it to the full extent that we want. I agree with the comment that a law is not going to be useful unless it's enforced. And we have to be able to enforce our laws. The existing laws, as well as any laws that we pass in the future. And we need all your help for that. We need you to tell us where there are violations. Now understand that now, we do listen to you. We've had code enforcement people go out to the very properties that you've identified, and we'll continue to do that. Unfortunately, we can't give parking tickets. I wish we could. I am very concerned about the support from the Ramapo police. Well, lack of is right. I was outside my house doing work for a couple hours, and I went over to one of the Ramapo policemen in one of these meetings, and I said, you know, I never saw a police car go down my block. And I asked him why. He said, well, there's no crime in your neighborhood. I said, there's no excuse. You're there to prevent crime. You're also there to watch out for speeders, which we all know these buses go too fast in all of our neighborhoods, all the buses. We all know there's parking that should not be permitted, and yet that's not being enforced. I wish we could do something about it. I wish, as a trustee, I could go out and get tickets. Unfortunately, I can't. I'd be standing on the corner of Spring Hill every day if I could do that. Because I've heard more complaints from that street than anywhere else, so something's got to be done about it. And we're trying to deal with the Ramapo police to do something about it. We are also trying to deal with the communities to help us deal with it. To help us all be one, to be one closer community with each other. We are looking at a law that is trying to help a certain segment, a number of segments in our people, anyone with religious, that need religious places of worship. But it is true that there's a certain segment of the population that needs to walk. They can't ride. And I agree with the comment, well, there was a comment that said asking people to walk a few blocks is not an undue burden, according to our NUPA. I agree with that. In my neighborhood, a comprehensive plan wouldn't help one bit. Why? There's no land. It's virtually all resident. So where do the people pray? Where can they walk to in a reasonable period, in a reasonable amount of time, in a reasonable amount of space? That's something we have to be concerned about for our neighbors. Whether you like it or not, there are people that require houses of worship closer to their homes. And we are trying to deal with that in a way that makes what is already, might be out there, we want everything, we want the chaos that might be out there right now to be understood, controlled, and made into a reasonable order, where the people attending in these meeting houses, whether it's community, whether it's residential, whether it's neighborhood, are protected under the fire laws, under the appropriate building codes, and everything else, where right now they may not be. I'm concerned about our neighbors, I'm concerned about our neighborhoods, and I'm concerned about people meeting. So we want to do the right thing for this community. I don't want to see it changed. I live here. My housing values are at stake. I don't want to see these houses go off the tax rolls. But yet I hear accusations about this board that are so untrue and so disingenuous and so baseless, it's hard to sit here and say nothing. Thank you for your time.
I'm Howard Cohen, and I live on Madeline Terrace. And I'm very happy to say that people who live on Madeline Terrace live here for the same reasons that I moved here. Single-family homes on individual lots, and green lawns and safe neighborhood for all our kids to play in. Whether it be my grandchildren, my children grew up here, and now the village is returning to the way it was when I first moved here. We formed the village in 1986 because we were not happy with the way things were going in Ramapo. When we formed the village, anticipated that there would be a need for neighborhood or residential synagogues. However, as Ramapo expanded, it moved and population grew, people moved into Chestnut Ridge and had other needs. We never anticipated that when we adopted a 5-acre lot for a house of worship. We had synagogues here, we have a mosque, we had other religions forming, and 5 acres was suitable at that time. Where people need to walk to their house of worship, we never excluded, like some of the other villages, that right. We assumed that people would get together in their homes and pray, and never thought it would be a burden on anyone. However, as the population grew and people needed specific synagogues in residential areas, we found that the 5-acre requirement was a burden and did not meet the needs of that population. When people move into Chestnut Ridge, they bring their First Amendment rights with them. And our community has to make adoptions to accommodate that. And we thought the fact that we would not have any prohibitions about it, like some of the other villages, people left it to their own discretion how to have home worshiping. And we got a garage masquerading as, a synagogue masquerading as a garage, and a great room, and so on. The idea of having this law is so that we can regulate the many problems that you've been elaborating on, where we have control over the size, over parking, over density, and over the size of the room with fire laws, so that when people gather in a home, they're consistent with New York State fire regulations. Right now, we don't have that. People are parking helter-skelter wherever they can because they need to get to a place of prayer on a timely basis, and we don't have a regulation for that. We're still working out whether the parking should be on-site or off-site, and that's a difficult issue. However, we're going to try something, whether it's a hybrid of a combination of it, or only on-site parking, we don't know. But if we find one thing doesn't work, we'll try something else to accommodate our neighborhood. But right now, our current zoning law does not is not working for any of us. Not the religious community, and not people who need to pray in their homes. It's not working for them. It's not working for any of us. So we're trying to organize this in a reasonable and thoughtful process. And if we find, and it's not going to be perfect, but when we find out some of the issues that can be improved on, we're going to do it. But doing nothing is not an option. And we ask everybody to this is an open meeting to help our proposed law by making comments about that in order to hear your ideas how we can improve the proposed law. And that's what these meetings have all been about. So we're not closing the public hearing. We still want your critique on the law itself to help us make the best decision possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee.
I can't ready to say it. 1 second. My name's Paul Van Alstein. I'm 81 Summit Road. I've lived in my safe house since 1988. Long-term resident of Chestnut Ridge, 81 Summit Road since 1988. Paul Van Alstein. In all this discussion, whatever we want to call it here, one of my pet peeves, my interest, is enforcement. And I believe that villages in Rockland County, inability to administer code enforcement creates the big mistrust between the villagers and the religious community. If this House of Worship law is passed, we must create code enforcement that's up to the task. This is where my pet peeve is. This is where I want to work. This is what I want to do. I think that we should do a couple of things. First of all, we should commit the resources for personnel and monies to make sure that we have the code enforcement for the House of Worship law up to snuff. I think we should reach out to some of the other communities around who have successful code enforcement operations that have been proved recently and ask for their help, their guidance, so that we can bring our code enforcement policies, procedures up to snuff on this law. If we don't do that, then it's not going to do anything. So I believe, for me personally, we need code enforcement that's up to the task for this law. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Van Alstein. Folks, tagging along what Mr. Van Alstein said, and then also along the lines of what actually all of the trustees had mentioned with regard to enforcement. I'm going to give, if you bear with me, at least let me give you a little background as to what the village has been actually trying to do. When I first came on board as mayor, we did not have pretty much a code enforcement office. So we're talking 2013, I guess. We had part-time code enforcement officials. We did not have a building inspector. I became mayor. Our code enforcement part-time gentleman, that went to the wayside. There was an issue with regard to, again, the enforcement and getting out there. We had to utilize contract services for a building inspector. We had to utilize contract services for zoning enforcement. We had to utilize contract services for a fire inspector. Fast forward another 2 years, and now we start trying to get people in code enforcement. And we have to go through county personnel. Rockland County personnel has very stringent requirements as to who can get jobs within the villages, believe it or not. And even though we wanted to hire certain folks, the county told us, no, you cannot. We as a county don't feed county personnel. We don't feel as though that they have enough experience. We don't feel as though that they will fit the bill for you. Now, understand our frustration. We as a board wanted to hire this individual, and the county told us you couldn't. I had to fight. I did. I had to appeal 3 different times with county personnel to ultimately hire one of the current code enforcement officials we have now, who's working out wonderfully. And he lived in the village. He lived in the village. And they didn't like the fact that he might not have had actual code enforcement or building experience, but he had it from outside business. So now as a result of our numerous meetings before the Board of Trustees, we laid out on the table we wanted to hire a full-time code enforcement official and a part-time code enforcement official. And we advertised for those two positions. And you know what, folks? We found two very qualified individuals. Excellent, excellent, excellent qualifications. The full-time person that we vetted through the county said no. Even though he lives in Rockland County, because he didn't have enough what they felt to be construction-type experience under his belt. Even though he was in business for a number of years, even though he had other experiences, which we as a board felt as though was sufficient, and that we were willing to take that, I'll say risk, for lack of a better term, and hire him. And they told us no. Then we want to hire the part-time code enforcement official. And there too, they said no, he doesn't have enough code enforcement experience, even though he had over 30 years building experience. However, he also didn't live in the county, and we didn't like that. The county told us he didn't live in the county, even though he fit the bill all other ways, shapes, and form as a part-time code enforcement official. So what did we do? I had to end up getting the full-time person that we were going to hire. I was able to get him as part-time because their county personnel had no issue with that because it was a different tier as far as the classification. So we were able to hire that part-time code enforcement official. But I lost another part-timer who would have been able to come into our office and done the job. Now we fast forward again to the discussion about hiring a full-time deputy building inspector. We advertised. We got over a dozen resumes. None, to my recollection, qualified out of Rockland County. Outside the county, yes, but none in Rockland County. And we interviewed a number of individuals. And now I am in the process of having to pitch to Rockland County personnel that we want to hire this full-time individual as our deputy building inspector. But you know what my issue is going to be? He doesn't live in the county. And I'm going to have to fight, again, with county personnel because they do not allow us as a village to hire who we want to hire. Now, the county personnel tells me, well, we have certain civil service restrictions and parameters that we need to follow. Well, they also have discretion with regard to those parameters. And I've tried, as diplomatically as I could, to try to convince Rockland County personnel, let us hire the folks we want to hire. We feel as though they have the background. We feel as though that they can do the job. And we're getting challenged left and right. And it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. Do I sound a little defensive? Maybe I do. Moratorium has nothing to do with it. Because here's the other side of it. Here's the other side of it. Just because you don't have enough police officers doesn't mean you stop passing laws. You have to continue looking at your laws. It's not static. You have to continue the improvement. And you have to do it simultaneously. Simultaneously. You work on enforcement. You work on your legislation. It's an ongoing thing. And we have been getting assistance from Ramapo Police Department, and we need to get more from them. Ramapo PD has always been very good to the village of Chestnut Ridge. And we appreciate the service, and we appreciate the fact that they are here when we need them to be. Because when we call them, they are here. Unfortunately, because us as a village, we as a village do not have our own police department, and when things happen 2 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock at night for that matter, we have to rely on the Ramapo PD. And sometimes, unfortunately, there's other stuff that they've got to do that's unfortunately a little bit more important than what we're calling them for. However, they don't disregard us, and when they're able to do it, they come in and they do it. And we will continue to work with Ramapo PD. and a comment was made about having our code enforcement people work at night or on weekends and things of that nature. There are some instances where they're able to do that, especially since some live in the area. So they'll ride by houses on a Saturday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or on a Sunday, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But they can't be everywhere all the time, 24 hours a day. And that's why when you see people parking funny, when you're hearing noise and stuff like that, we cannot have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week code enforcement staff. Again, I don't mean to be sounding defensive, I'm telling you what the reality is. But as we speak, we have a full-time deputy building inspector in the pipeline, and my hope is to have a full-time code enforcement official also coming down the pike. So, that having been said, our enforcement, we're going to work on our enforcement, and by the time we hire these folks, we get them to class, we get them to the point where they can issue violations, then we'll be where we need to be. But we're not going to wait 2 years to do it. We're not going to wait 2 years to do it. We're not going to wait 9 months to do it. We're not going to wait 6 months to do it. Okay? We have to do this simultaneously. That having been said, I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to the December 20th, 2018 meeting. We're going to try to move for 7:30. Again, if there's any change, we will get the word out for folks. So again, a motion to continue the public hearing to December 20th at 7:30 at this venue, hopefully. Do I hear? Thank you, Trustee Cohen, for the motion. Thank you, Miller, for the second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? There being none. Thank you very much. A happy and healthy Thanksgiving to all.